Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello all and welcome to the EarthWorks podcast. I'm your host, Jack Higgins, and this week I have the pleasure of sitting down with an old friend, superintendent, grounds manager, Mr. Jason Pierce of the Golden Horseshoe Resort down in Williamsburg, Virginia. How you doing, Jason?
Good, Jack. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Did I get that title right? Because I know that you kind of wear a bunch of hats. It's a multi-course facility down there. So what is your official title?
That's right. I'm the director of agronomy here at Golden Horseshoe. I'm also a regional agronomist now with Kemper Sports. But yeah, I've been here 3 years now. I was fortunate enough to join a great team of superintendents. Certainly great experience and depth of knowledge and qualified guys, Jeremy Waddell and Greg Deland. And we're a good team here, and it's going real well.
Excellent. So okay, your employer is actually Kemper Sports, and
yes,
and you've worked with them for a long time, I imagine.
Yeah, I've been with Kemper for it'll be 22 years in January.
Okay, great. And they have the contract with the city of Williamsburg, or is
it's Colonial Williamsburg, which would be the foundation that takes care of all the kind of the living museum and all the resorts and things like that in Williamsburg.
Excellent. And Kemper manages that property for Colonial Williamsburg, and you guys do a great job. It's really kind of resort golf, as you mentioned. You're thinking about guests coming into Colonial Williamsburg, and you want to provide a place for them to enjoy a couple nice rounds of golf.
Yeah, certainly. It wears a lot of hats as well. There is a public availability to it, along with the resort, and then there is a membership component as well. So it reaches a broad range of who wants to play. So,
But you have to consider that. I'm sure you have to consider that in the way you set up the golf course and just the way you schedule events and everything like that at Golden Horseshoe.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. It's nice to have two 18-hole golf courses. If you've got a tournament one, it opens up some tee times on the other, and members can go play the other course. And then, there's always the 9-hole Spotswood course that it's a short 9, kind of like an executive that was put in 47 by Rockefeller as the old Williamsburg Inn course way back in the day. And then Robert Trent Jones came in 63, I believe, changed the Gold course or changed the old Williamsburg Inn course and designed the Gold.
Okay, and the Gold is the kind of the premier course there of the 218s. Is that right?
Yeah. I think it was Robert Trent Jones' first design. He's got the island green, probably the first island green, I think, on hole 16 there, and he claims it to be his favorite design too.
Excellent.
I've seen in some articles, I think, in the past.
And I know just kind of around the time that you arrived there, what is it, 3 years now that they did a rebuild on the Gold?
Yeah, they did a little bit of a renovation. Certainly updated the bunkers to better billy. They did some reshaping of the greens to smooth out some of the undulations. They were a little small for the percentage of slope. It was probably a little tough to get pin placements and speed. I think they were heavy with POA, and they wanted the opportunity to change that a little bit. And then they updated the variety to Northbridge, Bermuda on tees and fairways. So, plus too.
But bent grass greens.
Bent grass greens, yes. On actually, all 3 courses, even the Spotswood course, all bent grass greens. They went with 007 on the Gold course.
And that, but that Northbridge variety of Bermuda grass is a real fine leaf blade, and I'm sure it kind of matches up pretty well with the bent.
It does. the most impressive thing I think is the growth habit. It stays low, and it's a nice tight lie. The members certainly like it. And as far as frequency of mowing, I mean, this time of year you can get away with mowing once in a week or even less. So it's very, very, very slow growth habit, which is beneficial.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, we have a kind of a theme and an agenda that you and I talked about for this talk, and I kind of want to get into it. You and I have been friends for over a decade. I know that, if you believe it. That's because that's how long I've been with EarthWorks, and you were one of the first guys I met probably in my first year working. Definitely, you worked for Kemper then, here in New Jersey, at Heron Glen. So we got a chance to talk, and we talked last week and said this is kind of the theme for this podcast is really about efficiency in the job, and you've kind of had your hand forced into that in many of the places that you've worked, and I've always been impressed with how you've risen to that challenge, with some specific ways that we're going to get into. So just one more thing though, as we're talking about Kemper and where you've been, we kind of passed over, but you mentioned that you're now the regional agronomist for Kemper Sports. And what does that mean exactly?
Well, it's something new to Kemper. I've been kind of doing some form of that over the years with potential new acquisitions and site assessments and things like that. But this year they're rolling out, that program. There's 5 regional agronomists for Kemper Sports now. And I happen to have the kind of the Mid-Atlantic transition region, since we here both have warm season and cool season grasses. And there's about 22 courses in that region.
Okay.
And most of them are, in New Jersey and Maryland and, places I've been and guys I've been familiar with for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going good. It's a program that's in the development phase. One of the big goals, it's just a strong group in those 22 courses. It's really just to reach out to, I think one of the goals really is to pull these guys together and provide a deeper well of resources that they can rely on each other and they can share information and things like that. Which I think has the potential just to build and get stronger. I think the group of guys we have is second to none, and I think they have a lot to offer. And I think we're missing something by not having them together and providing a platform for them to share information.
100%.
Products used. Certain guys have tried things that maybe other guys haven't. So we're working into that and monthly calls and different things like that. And, participation is varying, up front and early, but we're hoping that it catches on really, really good. And because everybody's got something to provide, everybody's got an insight that anybody could learn from, and we all realize that. And I think
that's something. It's very important. We saw it at EarthWorks and through the pandemic, forced us to get on the phone with each other via Zoom call. And we started, everyone in the company, we started probably 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, talking, each day. And we've continued Monday phone calls every Monday. Everybody participates. And like you said, we're all a wealth of information to each other. We're a resource to each other. And it's very useful to talk it out.
Yeah, we agree. And that's what the upfront goal is. And we're working, we're doing it. So it's a good deal.
Good deal. Okay, so let's get into this talk. What do we mean about efficiency? And I think we can start with a little bit of background about you in the golf business. You mentioned, was it your first assistant's job? Was that Mercer's?
Yeah, it was in Mercersburg. It was at Whitetail Golf Resort. It was between years, first year, I guess it was 98. When I had Joel for fertility at Rutgers, and then between years I did an internship with my father-in-law. He was building a new course called Whitetail Golf Resort in Mercersburg. And I did my internship there, and we were in construction, and it was the second construction because I moved there from Rum Point in Ocean City, Maryland, where I worked at Eagles Landing and Rum Point for 4 years prior to that.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, you have that Ocean City experience too.
Yep.
You showed me a great picture once of you like tending bar or something, or bouncing, right? Down there, one of them bars.
Yeah, those were some, the good old days. Those were numbered now, but it was a good Ocean City. Every night's a Friday night, I think.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had golf construction there, but then you kind of went up more to up into Mercersburg at Whitetail and got more golf construction.
Yeah.
And you said that was your father-in-law you worked for?
Yeah, Jeff Hall. Yeah, he's still there. He's been in the industry. He goes back to Lancaster Host Golf Resort in Lancaster, PA. I think he worked there maybe when he was even a teenager.
Oh,
and he was
wow.
For, I don't know, decades there, and then moved out when Whitetail was going to be constructed. He moved out there, and then he needed some help. He was the only guy there, and I was looking for an internship, and it just worked out. So I went out there and helped him, and then Kemper took over Whitetail, and then the tail end of construction and grow in at Heron Glen came open, and I went from Whitetail and did the tail end construction and grand opening at Heron Glen.
Okay, so let's get into the efficiency, because I know you've kind of got a funny quip about construction specifically and being efficient when you're throwing down your amendments.
Yeah, back at Whitetail when in the internship, I already had a year with Joel and about fertility and everything, and I find myself with the task solo to amend the greens mix, and all of a sudden where the order comes in and it's multiple truckloads. I don't know how many pallets of different, there's 6-7 different things I've got to figure out. A 400-pound rate with 7 different things, 150 pounds of Ecolite. I got desert greens, soft rock phosphate. It's ingrained in my memory, what's all in there.
Yes.
Out there push spreading, each individual amendment that, which was a nightmare on every green, and then tilling it in, and the truckloads of bag after bag was just. So I'm cussing, every day is like a new cuss out for whoever's responsible. I didn't realize at the time until I got the job at Heron Glen and moved to New Jersey, and who shows up in my first week? Joel came out to see me, and then, I'm telling him about these, the amendments, everything. He goes, you know what? That's my style. You guys had my plan, and I set it up for you. And I said, so you're the one. I was so pissed. So that wasn't even the worst of it. Then he tells me, well, just this year we're putting it all in one bag. And
oh my gosh.
I was ready to strangle him, because now he tells me, 1 year later, or it's probably that time frame, but 1 year later that he's got it all in one bag. I said, boy, that'd have been helpful. He says, you might have been the last one to put out my
my Lord. Yes. So now, of course, that's all Renovate Plus.
Yeah, it's Renovate Plus.
But you were putting it out individually.
Individually out in scale in the field, trying to weigh out, 75 pounds of this, 150 of that. It was just it was a nightmare. And then he drops the bomb, that he's got it in one bag. I was like, should have called him to help spread it, but
exactly.
First example as a superintendent of efficiency, or maybe not so, on putting that stuff in one bag, I'm sure made people a little more efficient.
There you have it. Exactly. and so then at Heron Glen, were you able to use just the regular Renovate already blended, or?
Yeah, well, we were putting it in an aerification, because at that time they already had a certain portion of greens that were grown in when I took over. Beautiful. 3 or 4 greens were already seeded and established. So we just started putting it in. I think the first 8 years, there we had put in renovate every year, drug into the aerification holes twice a year.
Mhm.
And, until we got that level of maturity, and I think, I still think we did it. We had switched, or we'd always used some 5-5-5 program,
Right.
kick and potency and
Right.
trilogy was a big one as well. Has always been part of my programs. But yeah, it was good. It was great.
Oh, it can grow some grass. Yeah.
Twice a year we went with renovate. I
Mhm.
would individual bags.
So now tell me, because I mean, the story was that you were doing this all yourself, and that's kind of where the efficiency is necessary. You didn't have like a whole crew to do this. Now, that's always kind of been a limiting factor, is that you're not the superintendent of 30-man crews. So you're needing to do more with less. So let's get into that more about your your experience with that, and kind of some of the tactics you've utilized. So at Heron Glen, for example.
Yeah. Well, it probably all, efficiency was kind of just born out of necessity and your circumstance. So not unlike, anybody else. I think it probably all started with, trying to get labor. When I just showed up by myself, on the ground, I have to get, staff. And, a bunch of years in, I'm not having much luck. Pay rates back then, weren't the greatest. It was tough finding anybody with experience. I think in 18 years I was there, I only ever had one assistant that had prior experience, and only one mechanic that had prior experience on a golf course. So labor was a big thing, where I learned early on, you kind of have to establish your own next, assistants in those positions, where maybe an auto mechanic, and try to, shape that into, what it is to be a golf course equipment mechanic, and those transitions. And, those led to things. Well, now, I need training, I need training tools to help me. You realize you're the only one that knows how to hand water at some point, and then you start to come up with little tricks and ways to help coach the guys, and it seems like I think the three guys there, Aaron and the guys, were all part of my crew at one time, and now, two assistants and the superintendent are holding down the fort, and doing a good job still there. But at one time, I think I might have helped put maybe 6 or 7 people through the Rutgers program, in cycling those guys through, being my assistants,
Right.
So it worked out well in that sense.
So when you have people that come to you with zero experience, you have to figure out at that time, how am I going to teach them and set them on a path that they're going to be good for them, but also good for this crew. You mentioned like having a mechanic with zero golf course mechanic experience. You built what was it you called the wall of pain for him? What's the wall of pain?
I think he was a good mechanic, and it was funny. I used to get ribbed about my wall of pain. I built this huge. It was probably half the length of the shop, with plywood, and every piece of equipment had its own clipboard. And I laminated the maintenance schedule from the Toro books. I printed and laminated and glued it to the back of each clipboard so you could reference it. And all the equipment had it there, each clipboard. And you can imagine walking in the shop, and there's 70, 75 clipboards hanging on the wall. And, they used to laugh, but, it was a system, pre my turf, that was kind of like having that on the wall and available for anybody to pull a clipboard and see that the maintenance is being done. It was just a little bit of a nightmare at the end of the season, pulling 10 pages off of 50 pieces of equipment and trying to add all that up and do any kind of numbers crunching. from, individual spreadsheets. But
yeah, sure. Now the app does it for you.
Now the app is in there. Yeah, it was kind of like My Fleet before My Fleet became popular. So, and I think it helped, organize a system of scheduled maintenance that wasn't just handwritten on a melamine board where, you might see that erased or anything. And we could track a little better, how many filters and, things like that. So it was a good, it was the manual non-computer, my fleet, I guess, before that came out.
Well, this is getting into kind of what I'm trying to convey. You are the sort of guy that makes sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. You don't leave any stone unturned. Now, this kind of gets me into what I want to ask about. You had mentioned to me at one point that you were a certified auditor for irrigation systems a long time ago.
Yeah, that I think 2005. The courses came out in 2005, but prior to that, I was already running runtime minutes or precipitation rates as opposed to runtime minutes, because I kind of did my own dialing in. I was out measuring row and head spacing and matching nozzles to that, and figuring out. I had a way where I printed out from my map to scale each green. And I could measure the drip lines of each head, and I would draw the drip lines to see the overlaps, to see where how many overlaps within one green, and the discrepancy. We might have one spot that's only covered by one head, and then another spot that has 5 head coverage. And I could tell that by hand drawing the drip lines to a scale drawing to see where those overlaps were. And then I would go out and match nozzles, and then I would change the programming, and Toro gives you that programming. They give it to you 74-foot spaced, everything rectangular. People don't take advantage of the inline, the triangulated spacing and the rectangle. So I went in and redid everything. It changed all my hot spots. It really evened out the watering and everything. And then
again, necessity is the form of invention there. You didn't have the crew that you could send out 5 guys out to hand water every afternoon.
Yeah. I'm the only one not the only one hand water, but when you need help and that led to, we used to take cores. I had a 1 to 5 scale on moisture before TDRs, so we would take a 1/2-inch core in the collars and we would feel it. And it might take 2 or 3 months for those guys to learn what a 3 was on my 1 to 5 scale, but they know if they hit a 3 at 2 o'clock, they could be good for the rest of the day. So, even I had to have a quantifiable way to put a number to something so we could measure, what moisture level we needed by a certain time and temperature. I would ask them on the radio, are we at 3s, or where are we at? There's powder, there's 1 on a collar, whatever. But what really helped dial that in and make a lot less hot spots was finding a way to fine tune that irrigation system. And then, you learn a lot in the auditing, certification and stuff. But I kind of was already, and it was tough back then. Nobody was really running runtime minutes, and everybody was, or nobody was running precip rates.
That's exactly right. Everyone just, you told me everyone just really kind of based everything off of 6 minutes. How many cycles of 6 minutes are we going to do?
Yeah. And unfortunately at Heron Glen, if you have great spacing and you can rely on your spacing, then there's not much of a need, unless, at Heron Glen, I had heads that were 45 feet from each other and then some that were 84 feet from each other. So it was really essential. I tried to match those nozzles and stators to the throw I needed to minimize those multiple overlaps, or at least get it to maybe areas that might be covered by 2 heads and some by 4, rather than one area covered by 1 head and 5 heads. That discrepancy wasn't, is way over watering areas that didn't need to be wet and things like that. So it was just my way of, figuring out how to reduce the hand watering spots and then try to train these guys what to look for and what to hit. So, we come up with
you built an Excel sheet that accounted for evaporation, transpiration well before there was programs to do that.
We used to. I didn't really have it on Excel, but we kept some notes, or what was the result in the field. But in time, it was more of an older school feel thing where the guys knew what they were looking for. I used to hand water in bare feet, and I always thought that was until I would get yelled at after spray applications and things. But I'm a big feel guy, or kind of more old school. But we still needed a way to measure it, and that was the 1 to 5 scale that we used to use. When we would go probe and hand water.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way that you could get things done, be efficient with a crew that, first of all, you don't have enough hands on deck. And second of all, like you said, people are learning how to greenkeep in the moment. They're not coming on with experience.
Certainly a big challenge when you've got, 90-degree days and you don't really have the extra people or the time to be training somebody at that point. I've gone and sent somebody to hand water that didn't even know, just to get some moisture down, and when I catch up with you, you'll be your first training session, but like everybody, you just kind of have to do what you have to do. And that's kind of the name of the game. I'm a percentage kind of guy where, you try to get everything to 100%, but you have to realize along the way that, if you get, hold on, you got to realize along the way, you take a little percentage there, a little percentage there, and you just hope to make a bigger difference through the, percentage changes you could make little by little,
Oh, absolutely. You only have to swing a couple percent for it to make a big difference in the long run.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, one thing I didn't really get across when we mentioned about your experience in starting with who became your father-in-law, your old boss there at Whitetail Resort, is that he's produced a number of superintendents out there in the industry, and they're all related.
Yeah. Well, certainly, my brother-in-law's his twin daughters and my wife had all married people in the industry, since he was a superintendent, so it was familiar to all the girls. He's got one daughter that didn't marry into the industry. Maybe sometimes that's a blessing. But yeah, Dan Kilpatrick and Kenny Kreider and I are all brother-in-law. Kenny and Dan married the twins, and I married their sister. And I watched Kenny graduate high school back in the late 90s. So
that's great. And I met Ken over at Somerset Hills with Ryan Tuxhorn, and I only met Dan just this year, but he's of course the superintendent at North Jersey Country Club. Beautiful property there. And where's Ken now?
Ken is at Bayside in Delaware. So we're all kind of spread out. We don't have as many Thanksgiving dinners as we used to when we were a little closer, but maybe that's by design too, because it was some interesting Thanksgiving dinners, as you could imagine, the three of us together. I think I'm always the dog. I'm talking about golf, and they just wanted to have a nice Thanksgiving and ignore work for a little bit. So
we're like talking about golf, yeah.
So I don't know what's going on. We got to get together again for another Thanksgiving.
So and Dan's wife is an assistant superintendent. Is that right?
She's at Rockaway River, John. Yeah, she's been there.
And I missed her name. What, Val's sister? What's her name?
Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica. Oh, excellent.
Married to Dan, and Kenny's married to Jenny. So.
Oh yeah, it's wild, man.
It's crazy. It's good. Yeah, we all went out and worked with Dan at the PGA. Maybe 14, I forget. I'm not sure what year it was, but it was fun to all get together. Both Jesse and Dan worked on the lower at the time they did the PGA, so we all got together and went out and helped Dan.
That was at Baltusrol.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I feel happy with what we covered here. That was kind of like the crux of what I wanted to get into was how you've really made now a long career. You know, you've been at this a while.
Yeah, we didn't talk back to 1986, but I'll spare you those details.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you've been at this a long time growing grass,
Yeah.
and you've really developed some really good tactics for being efficient with your resources. And you're continuing it. Like you said, you've got you've got what, 36 holes of, no, you've got more than 36 holes of golf down there.
45 here. Certainly the resources are better, and this team down here was a really solid team before I got here, and they've been great, and it's been a great move, and yeah, all is well. I miss all the guys back in Jersey, and tell everybody hi and hello to Joel for me. I
certainly will.
You know, I've been doing this for, ever since 2001 when I was in at Heron Glen. I mean, there hasn't really been a program any season that I haven't had EarthWorks products in a fertility program that I've developed. So I've been a long-time fan, and I think EarthWorks was developed in the farm next to Heron Glen back in the day too. Joel,
that's exactly right.
Right next.
Joel was living Joel was renting a place on a farm. I think it was like the old carriage house on a farm, and that's where he was living when he started EarthWorks. And he and Jerry would hang out there and brainstorm and strategize and do their thing.
That's right. That's awesome.
Well, I really appreciate that you have used EarthWorks in all of your programs in your long career. And I'm very, I do appreciate it. And I'm happy that you've seen success with it.
Yeah, it's been great stuff, and trusted over the years. And, we'll continue using it for sure.
Good deal.
Great. Thanks. Hope that was sufficient or all right.
It was really good, dude. It was very good.
A lot of fun. Tell everybody I said hey, and we'll see you soon, or we'll talk again soon. I'll be up in Allentown maybe one of these days, a week or so.
All right, good deal. Thanks a lot, Jason. See you, pal.
Take care.